Japan is by far one of my favorite places on Earth. I've traveled to Japan a number of times in my life, and although the experiences are similar each time, I walk away every trip with a new appreciation for this wonderful country. This time, traveling to Japan, I wanted to travel with a more compact and manageable set of video cameras and stills cameras so that I could be a tour guide with my family, but also capture the moment with a high-quality video. So, for this trip, I brought along a DJI Osmo Pocket 3 for my walk-around camera. I brought my Blackmagic 4K Studio G2 to capture some cinematic footage on the street, and a Canon R5 for stills. For this video, I want to discuss the Blackmagic 4K Studio G2 and how I used it and how it applied to my travel plans. A few months ago, I did a video outlining my desire to use the Studio G2 for my travel videos and was attempting to get a small footprint camera with great quality. Overall, I think the Studio G2 lives up to the quality, as it's just a Pocket 4K in a stripped down package. But the problem comes with the stripped down package. My biggest complaint about the Studio G2 is the battery. With the standard LPE6 battery, you are racing against time to have it stay powered. I don't think I've gotten much more than 20 minutes out of a battery. So I opted to use a small rig, Mini V-Mounts 50, to power my camera. This lasts a really long time, but adds a considerable amount of weight and size to the body of the camera. I powered the camera and the monitor from this battery, and it seemed to work fairly well. But again, this brings us to the monitor. So, with the stripped down body, I would need a monitor. The Studio G2 does not have a monitor built in like the Pocket 4K. It would be great if the Blackmagic remote app could do monitoring and a remote video feed, but alas, it does not, so we need to have a monitor. I chose my 5-inch Feel World monitor that I could do D-squeeze for my anamorphic lenses. This added on more size and weight to the overall camera. The biggest issue with the monitor was mounting it, so I attached it to a top handle and I have a swivel that allowed me to move it around, but that also protruded out of the top of the camera. If I had access to a monitor which does external recording via cards, I could have made my life a lot easier because I could have recorded to the monitor's storage instead of the next issue I faced, which is storage. So the camera is meant to work in a studio environment, attached to a streaming switch, so that storage isn't necessarily a primary consideration for this camera. With that being said, I'm using it outside of a studio, so I need to record to an external drive. For this, I used my standard 1TB Samsung T7 drive, which I use on all my cameras, my computers, and even my iPad. This is a small, light, compact storage device which records a ton of data, but it's also one more thing to attach to the camera. So, I decided that this camera would just be a visual tool, and I didn't need to bother to attach a microphone to the camera. I used an internal audio, which was good enough for ambient sound. I did have with me a Rode top mic and a set of Rode Wireless Go microphones, which I could have set up, but again, I didn't see the point. For lenses, I stuck primarily with one lens for the whole setup, and that was a Sirui 50mm 1.33 anamorphic. This lens I love, and it works well with the Studio G2. There is one thing that I've noticed about the 28mm and the 75mm anamorphic lenses, is that they don't mount quite as smoothly to the Studio G2. I have no problem mounting this to the Pocket 4K, so I'm guessing there's something unique about the lens mount on the Studio G2. It just does not go on smooth. I sometimes have to even force it to go on. So would I recommend the Studio G2 for a run and gun travel camera? No. If you already have a Pocket 4K, you can save yourself time and space using that camera, since there's a built-in monitor, there's storage ports on board, and a handheld design, which the Studio G2 does not have. The battery for the Pocket 4K is just as terrible as the Studio, so there's no escaping the need for external power. I like the idea of the small form factor. I'm also looking at wireless monitoring solutions so that I could use an iPhone to monitor the camera's video feed. But when you add on all the other components, the Studio G2 ends up being as large, if not larger, than going with the Pocket 4K.